Monday, May 30th, 2022, Maneco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. Today, we're going to look at fractional reserve banking and how that is the mechanism through which the globalists, the Davos men, so to speak, extracts wealth from the general public. They've been doing it for hundreds of years. And yeah, of course, we're going to look at the markets afterwards. It is a public holiday in the US, but the futures markets are trading and Europe is open. So most of us by now know the comment from the World Economic Forum. I don't think it was a comment from Klaus Schwab, but it was from someone who wrote a paper for them. And this individual said, by 2030, you will own nothing and be happy. Well, unfortunately, this individual who wrote this comment is partly right, because we have been, as a society, in the West especially, indebting ourselves massively, and we've seen wealth distribution go completely the wrong way. We've seen the very few at the top own almost everything, and the bottom own almost nothing. And I'm going to come to the mechanism of fractional reserve banking, and it's so simple that you'd be amazed. But of course, they don't teach us. They don't teach people at high school. You could teach someone at high school about that, or let alone college or university. But just wanted to show you, this is from the Federal Reserve itself. It's the distributional financial accounts. So if you go back to the third quarter of 1989, the top 10% owned about 60% of all the wealth. You can see the bottom 50 only owned 3.7%, and the bottom 90 owned about just under 40%. But now you go to present day, the latest data they have, fourth quarter 2021. You've got the top 10% owning almost just under 70%, and the bottom 50 own only 2.6%. and the bottom 90 are below 30. So it's going the wrong way, and I'm afraid that it could go even further the wrong way in the next few years with this everything bubble unraveling. So now to the fractional reserve mechanism. It's so simple that many of you are going to be like, wow. And I'm going to reference a book, controversial book, I have to say. It's called The Nameless War by Captain A.H.M. Ramsey. And I have to say, I don't agree with all his views, especially his racial, social views. I agree with him about the mechanism of fractional reserve banking, but yes, it's an eye-opening reading this. And this book was written in 1952. And who is Captain Archibald Henry Mole Ramsey? Well, he was born in 1894 and he died in 1955, and he was a British Army officer who became Britain's only serving member of parliament to be detained under the Anti-Democratic Defense Regulation 18B during World War II. So, yeah, he was arrested in 1940 and released in 1944, and he took his seat again after he was released in 1944. So here's the book. I'm not sure where you can find it. And again, I reiterate, I don't agree with a lot of the things he says, because I think this is not a problem of religion and race. It's a problem of good and evil. And there are good and evil people in all religions, all walks of life, all ethnicities, I would say. So here he's talking about how the current system was actually built up with the creation of the Bank of England in 1694. And that's when the national debt started being racked up, because you had a government, a royally chartered monopoly central bank, the Bank of England, and it was private. And it allowed the government to run debt, and the Bank of England had lien on taxes to pay the interest. So this is where it all started, the fractional reserve banking mechanism. So he says, gold was soon to become the basis of loans 10 times the size of the amount deposited. In other words, 100 pounds in gold would be legal security for 1,000 pounds of loan. So this is like me having one silver coin and being able to lend 10, even though I only have one, right? It's not right, but that's the way it is. At 3%, therefore, 100 pounds in gold could earn 30 pounds interest annually with no more trouble to the lender than the keeping of a few ledger entries. So the 3% becomes 30%. But here's where the interesting part comes in, and here he talks about the real world, right? The owner of 100 pounds of land, 100 pounds worth, of course, however, still must work every hour of daylight in order to make perhaps 4% return. The end process must only be a matter of time. The end of the process must only be a matter of time. The money lenders must become millionaires. Those who own and work the land, the Englishman and the Scotsman, must be ruined. The process has continued inexorably till now. When it is nearly completed, it has been hypocritically camouflaged by clever propaganda as helping the poor by mulching the rich. It has been in reality nothing of the kind. It has been in the main the deliberate ruination of the landless classes, the leaders among the Gentiles, and the supplanting by the financiers and their hangers-on. So there you go. That's how we explain fractional reserve banking and how it's being an instrument of wealth extraction. And what's the way out? Well, the way out is it's difficult unless the system actually unravels. And fortunately, I think there is a danger that the system is unraveling, because the bankers, the financiers, the money lenders, they've become so deluded. They've got so much hubris that they think they can keep the system going. And I have a feeling that a currency collapse could unravel all their plans, their plans to own everything, and for you to own nothing and be happy, so to speak. But that's how it works. That's why, yes, the way they lure people into this system is that they tempt you with having something for nothing. You know, the 30-year mortgage, the credit card borrowing, so you can take a nice holiday, buy a nice car. And they hook you into the system, and you become dependent on them. And they use the central banks and the artificial pumping and dumping of the system through artificial interest rates to basically keep extracting wealth from you and from the general public. And unfortunately, that's the way it works. And we're all like, we at certain points in our lives have been captured by this fractional reserve banking system. Whenever you take a loan, whenever you take a mortgage out, you're playing that game and you're benefiting these people. Is it any wonder now that there's such a small group of people owning everything after 300 years of this mechanism. Yes, in the United States, it hasn't been the whole time. We have had a period there since 1837 to 1913 where there hasn't been a central bank. But I would say the Federal Reserve has been like a Bank of England with steroids. I mean, you look at what's happened to the world in the last 100 and almost 10 years now after the creation of the Federal Reserve. It's not only distributed wealth within the United States, but it's redistributed wealth, the colonialism. It's done it through the financial system, because you look at how many countries are still really poor, and how do they lure these countries? Well, you need to read John Perkins' Confessions of an Economic Hitman. They do it the same way they do it to individuals. They lure nations into IMF loans, and they pay off corrupt politicians. And then when those loans fail, they take over all the valuable assets of those countries. And they can only do that through the central banking fractional reserve system. So it really punishes people who do real work, real productive work like farmers, manufacturers, anyone that's not involved in their system, in their financial banking system. So the major centers for this, of course, are Wall Street, City of London, I would say Frankfurt in Germany as well, maybe Tokyo for Asia, and even in China, they have the same system. So none of the world has escaped this. Some countries have tried to get out of this system. I would say Gaddafi was one of them in Libya, but you see what happened to him, trying to put Africa on a relatively sound, honest money system. Well, he was taken out very quickly. So, yes, as I said, interesting book. Don't agree with everything he says, but agree completely on the mechanism of the globalists. It's the same kind of people that were in charge back in the late 1600s. They're in charge now. They're the so-called internationalists. They don't care about nations or the country they live in. They just care about the profits. So how come they have been able to keep this system going? Well, they've, of course, captured governments. They've captured media, the press. They've captured universities. And, of course, people have faith and confidence in this system still. And is it any wonder they have huge buildings, these central banks? You look at the Bank of England, Threadneedle Street, very imposing building. You look at the Federal Reserve building in Washington, D.C., or the Federal Reserve Bank of New York and Liberty Street. These are all like huge forts almost. They're like imposing properties, and it makes them look solid. But I have to tell you that it's not solid. It's all based on faith and confidence, and that could disappear overnight. And that's the only hope we have. And the other hope, of course, is to keep informing people about this. So let's quickly look at where the markets are this morning. It's 8:38 a.m. London time. We've got spot gold at 1860.50. It's up about $6 or 1/3%. High's been 64, low 1848. Silver's up 4 cents at 22.15. Sorry. So up only about 1/4%. It has been as high as 22.30, and the low's been 21.96. The Dow future is up 200 or 2/3%. The NASDAQ 100 future is up 1.3%. S&P 500 is up just under 1% at 41.95. The FTSE 100 future is up 15 points, 0.2%, and the Euro Stoxx 50 is up just under 1%. To the currencies, sterling is unchanged, 126.32. The euro is up 0.25%, 107.58. The dollar is up 0.1 versus the yen, 127.25. The dollar is unchanged versus the Swiss franc, 95.69. And the dollar is down almost 1% versus the yuan at 666.26. Check on the Russian ruble. Russian ruble is at 65. So yeah, we have seen the ruble drop a little bit or the dollar go up. Central Bank of Russia did cut rates the other day. Aussie dollar is up 0.25%, 71.80. The dollar is down 0.2 versus the Canadian dollar, 126.97. And the Kiwi dollar is unchanged, 65.41. To the general commodities, WTI crude up 0.2%, 114.36. Brent crude is up about the same, just below 116. So there's no let up in commodities. These fiat currencies are going to continue to lose value because the globalists want to keep their system going, and the system is so much up to here. I mean, with that they need to devalue the currency so they can keep it going. The only danger with that is that people lose confidence in the system, and that's where we've got a chance if the currency collapses. If they can keep it going like this, that's I would say the bad part. We want to see a total implosion and loss of faith and confidence. High-grade copper is up 0.75% at 434, and U.S. nat gas is up 1% at 881. So yeah, U.S. Treasury market is shut today as it's a public holiday. So we'll come back to that tomorrow when the market reopens. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the like button. Please share it far and wide. We want to get this message out. And yeah, think about subscribing to the channel if you haven't yet. So I wish you all a great day. Take care. Bye.